And we're continuing our look at President Biden's first 100 days. Yesterday, we spoke about LGBTQ rights. Today's topic, immigration. Now, that is one of the many areas where Biden is moving to reverse many of the things that Donald Trump did over the past 4 years. On your screen now, a list of the executive orders that the new president has already signed. Revoking the policy that penalized sanctuary cities, another action counting all immigrants in the census, something Trump fought to prevent. President Biden also rescinding the Muslim ban that prevented people from several Muslim-majority countries from entering the U.S. and also fortifying DACA with the goal of providing a path to citizenship for millions of immigrants brought to this country as children. The new administration is also defunding border wall construction, and another of the president's moves has already wound up in court. A federal judge in Texas, who was appointed by Trump, just blocked Homeland Security's 100-day ban on deportations. That is the first, but likely not the last immigration move that the courts will decide. Justice Department has also gotten rid of the Trump administration's zero-tolerance policy. That resulted in thousands of kids being taken away from their parents at the border. And according to court filings, more than 600 parents cannot be located to this day, so their kids are still alone in a strange country. The report recently released by the DOJ's Inspector General savages what the Trump administration did. It says they didn't take the family's welfare into account, they failed to prepare and manage the policy, and they didn't understand the complexities of caring for the children themselves. In a few minutes, Andrew will join us, and he'll have a conversation with California Congressman about all of the immigration changes that Biden is pushing for. But first, let me bring now a familiar face to the program, Lee Gelernt. He is the Deputy Director of the ACLU's Immigrants' Rights Project. He has been at the forefront of the effort to locate and reunite these families with the parents and the children that have been taken away from them. He's also the lead attorney suing the government. And Lee, is it fair to characterize that you're cautiously optimistic that we're on the right path right here, but we're nowhere near close till putting these families together and also bringing justice given everything that they went through?
I think that's a perfect way to characterize it at this point. We are happy with what we are hearing from the Biden administration thus far, but we still have a long way to go. We are happy that they rescinded the zero tolerance policy. We had blocked that in court, but having a formal rescission by the administration is welcome. What we'd like to see from the Biden administration is not only help finding the remaining 600 families, but as importantly, help for the thousands of families who we have found who are separated. Many remain separated beyond the 600 and need to be brought back to the United States to reunify with their children here. They need to be given legal status here so they can remain. They need to be given some type of restitution for medical care and other basic necessities. We need accountability. So there's still an enormous amount of work done. We take as a given that the Biden administration will stop family separations going forward. We expect that. And we look forward to seeing formal procedures put in place. But the families that were already separated need relief. They have been so abused by the United States government. This is a moral stain on our country. And so we hope and expect the Biden administration will do everything it can to remedy the situation as much as it can be remedied at this point.
You know, and Lee, I think at our peril, we assume that the audience realized what happened with the previous policy. They know about family separations, but I was speaking to someone recently, pretty well informed, who didn't realize that it wasn't some accident that happened. The previous administration had the full intention of inflicting as much pain as possible as some form of a deterrent to these families. They intended to rip their children away from them. They never kept track of where they were. They lied about it when asked, and only when you confront them and they finally admitted it did they say, it's not our problem. You've learned about it. It's your job to put them all back together. What these families have gone through, I don't care anyone's politics, it is the most un-American thing I can think of.
You know, that's absolutely right. This was a deliberate policy to inflict punishment on these children. What this administration thought to themselves is, if we make a policy that's so evil by taking away even babies and toddlers, people will give up their asylum claims and people will not come to this country to seek asylum, no matter how bona fide that those claims may be. And two things are wrong with it. One is you ask any prior administration or any immigration expert, they'll tell you families were going to come anyway because they were in such severe danger. And when I asked families that we reunited, would you have come anyway if you had known this was going to happen? They just threw up their hands and shrugged and said, well, what choice did I have? As bad as this was, I couldn't stay in my own country and have my child be killed or me be killed. And so, but the second point is even more fundamental, is the point you're making is, even if it were some type of deterrent, which it wasn't, we just don't do things like this in the United States. And that's why I think we saw such a revolt from the American people, not just Democrats and liberals, but across the ideological spectrum. What people said to themselves, the Pope, Laura Bush, conservative religious leaders, the average person, just simply said, look, there may be disagreements about macro immigration policy, and those disagreements can be reasonable. But the one thing we cannot do in the United States is make little children, babies even, pawns in a larger political fight. And that's why I think the Biden administration needs to act quickly, and there is no political obstacle to them acting. There is not going to be pushback on the Biden administration saying we are going to help these little children.
Now, as I mentioned before, and I was being literal, you and your team, it was on you guys to try and create these reunifications, or at least identify the locations of these missing parents or children. To that end, complicated obviously with the pandemic, where is that effort? And now that you have a White House that at least is on the right end of the moral spectrum, what kind of help can they give you?
So that's again absolutely right. Is the Trump administration said, well, the parents have already been deported without their children. They shouldn't be part of this case at all. And we said, absolutely, they need to be part of the case. And the judge agreed. They were separated. They were even in a worse position because they're now out of the country worrying about their children. They're not even in the same country. The Trump administration then said, well, if the ACLU wants to find them, let the ACLU find them. So we created this steering committee, and we have been searching for families for years now. And what we hope the Biden administration can do is make sure that all the contact information that they have in the United States government has been given to us. The Trump administration has repeatedly failed to disclose relevant information. So that's the first thing we'll be asking the Biden administration to do, is go through all the computer databases, all the hard files, to see if they have contact information. But the other thing they can do is announce that these families will not be deported, that they are allowed to come back to the United States and reunite with their children. I think that will go a long way to helping us find some families, because some families may know we're looking for them, but we're scared to come out under the Trump administration, knowing the Trump administration wouldn't do anything for them. If these families now hear that the Biden administration will allow them to come back to the United States and finally see their children after years, it will make it much easier for us to find these families.
Fingers crossed. Lee, as always, we wish you guys the best of luck here. I can't think of more important work to be doing right now, but at least you don't have your government fighting against you when you try and make this right.
We really appreciate you covering this story.
Absolutely. And we're going to continue to cover the story on the other side of the break. President Biden signed a slew of executive orders on immigration, but will Congress get involved here to help them make these laws stick? After the break, a Democratic congressman from California, Mark Takano, who joins us to discuss.